Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of Interviewing The Affluent. My name is Kwame Barbour, and I am the founder and CEO of Affluential Clothing. We are a mission-based streetwear brand that promotes the idea that wealth is a matter of inspiration. While there are many different ways to describe affluence, one may believe that it all ties back to wealth and how we express our wealthiness. Affluential Clothing, however, would like to redefine this idea and showcase affluence as a mindset rather than a lifestyle. And through these interviews, we hope to expand the world's perspective on what the word wealth means. Joining us today for episode 3 of season 2, we are happy to introduce Mr. John Hottinger, Associate Director of the Career Development Center for the Dolan School of Business. Mr. Hottinger, how are you today?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you giving us this opportunity today.
I appreciate being here.
For those who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your time at the university?
Yep. I've been here for 6.5 years at Fairfield. I started out in the University Career Center and eventually moved over to Dolan School of Business in the beginning of 2019. Prior to working at Fairfield, I worked in the world of finance. Most of the time I was down on Wall Street. A little bit of affluence down there. I love what I do. I also teach in the fall a seminar called Sophomore Success and Full Transparency. Kwame was in my class a few years back. Some of the stuff I think we're going to talk about today, we actually talked about in class, and certainly from a success standpoint. So that's one of my favorite things to do is teach that seminar, but I also really like working one-on-one with the students here. I really like seeing when they land well, as Mr. Barbour did in his career pursuit.
Thank you. Thank you for that seminar class as well. You are one of the reasons I am so good at networking now. Has led to a lot of great opportunities, so I did want to start by thanking you for that. If there's one value that you live by, what might that be?
I think resilience, actually. I'm probably going to reference the class we did together, but for me, that's a strong value. Throughout life, there's going to be all sorts of things you have to adapt to, potentially overcome. I try to be that way as much as I can. We talked about grit. I think that's an essential component and something that people hopefully do have, because I think if you do get knocked down, it helps you to get up, helps you get balanced, helps you to figure out what knocked you down, and helps you improve going forward and make sure it doesn't knock you down again. I was in the World Trade Center on September 11th back in 2001. I was on the 84th floor of the second tower, and we had 300 people in my company. We lost 60 that day. That was a real, I was obviously grateful and thankful enough that I was able to get out of the tower. But I think that really marked the resiliency side for me individually and as a company. We had to kind of get back on our feet. We literally had no building. We had to figure out how to, the company I worked for easily could have just gone away. So that experience has stayed with me for a long time. Still, it's visceral, but I think it's taught me a lot of things that I think have helped me going forward, and I think that's an important trait to have.
Gotcha. And how would you say that you measure success?
For me, I think it's about finding a purpose and meaning in what you do. Again, we talked about this in class. I think if people develop an aptitude based on who they are and what they're interested in, at some point you're going to get paid something. If you're good at something, you get paid. But I think if you're doing something that really reflects who you are, what you're interested in, what you're energized about, what you're motivated about, you're going to get a sense of purpose and meaning out of what you do every single day. My time on Wall Street worked out well financially, but it really didn't reflect, the work itself didn't reflect who I am. I did feel a little bit of an emptiness as I was going through my career. I wanted to do something that was, in my view, a little bit more impactful and something that represented who I am more. So I deliberately went on to go to grad school and get a degree and eventually, get to an opportunity where I can interview for higher ed. I've landed here, luckily. I've been here for 6.5 years. They haven't got rid of me just yet. But I honestly, at the end of my day, I do feel a sense of purpose and meaning out of what I do. I think that's how I define success. If anyone can find that, I think you're going to be happy. You're probably going to get paid pretty well or enough what you need, I think. But I think that sense of being whole and purposeful and what you're doing is worthwhile is no question in my mind. And that's how I define success.
Just talking about that transition from Wall Street to higher education, when did you know that your true calling was higher education?
I would say I was probably about halfway through. I got started 3 days after I graduated from Fairfield University in the Bronx. And I got married young, we had kids young, so at that point you're on a path with a little bit less optionality. You kind of have to put your head down and go. Once I worked for a while and, my kids were a little bit taken care of and necessities were taken care of, I started to reflect on, is this who I am? This is what I want to do. And I figured it wasn't. So I thought back to my time at Fordham. I thought we didn't have career services back then, believe it or not. I don't make myself sound like I'm 90 years old, but second semester my senior year, they just hired an internship person, and I had no one to talk to about my path in any way, shape, or form. And I thought back to that, and I thought, I'd like to be that person. I'd like to be a voice of encouragement for students on them, figure out their path. A lot of students come to me really having no idea what they want to do, who they are, and that's my favorite conversation. I love talking about that sort of stuff. So it's just a matter of once I figured that I wanted to be that sort of voice, how do I go about it? How do I make it happen? I had to go to grad school, and eventually I was lucky enough that, I got far enough in grad school I could start interviewed here, and I don't know why, they took me. But, I think I would say it was about halfway through my professional career that I realized that there was going to be needed to be a pivot point.
Gotcha. So having those two parts of your professional career, what would you do with your life today if you knew you couldn't fail?
Honestly, I don't think I'd map it any differently. Failures, for me, honestly, I don't think about it. It may sound unusual. I'm not afraid to fail. I always think forward. I don't think backwards. I think I see something in front of me and it's attainable and I want to get it, and I try to get it. I don't worry about failing. I focus on getting it. So maybe that's a resiliency thing as well, potentially. In terms of mapping out my career, I think the amount of time I spent in the finance world is helpful for the students. My background, my experience, I can convey that. I can help the students shape what they should know and how they can interview well and network well and all that sort of stuff. So I think about that a lot. Like, what if I had left? I worked in finance for 32 years. What if I had left after 15 or 20? I'm not unhappy with it. I'm certainly not unhappy with my life, but I think it mapped out the way it should. I have more time to do this. I have plenty of background and experience. I can share my experience, and hopefully I'm helping some people.
Gotcha. So as someone who doesn't worry too much about failure, how do you stay inspired and motivated every day?
That's my competitive stuff. Yeah, I'm motivated every single day to if I can help somebody. I get fired up when I do interview prep. I love it. I'm competitive against any school that Fairfield students are going against. I want you guys to win really, really badly. It's extremely motivating for me. When I hear that there's good results, if I see LinkedIn posts or saying they just got something and I knew I was a little bit involved in that process, that's extremely motivating for me. When I worked on Wall Street, it was kind of you did trades, you got your commission. There was almost like a numerical thing. Like you kind of had something to achieve and to look for. My achievement now is you guys and your success potentially. So I'm exceptionally motivated by that. I drive 60 miles back and forth every day to get here. I don't think about that distance. My car's 150,000 miles right now, still going strong. But I'm extremely fired up on your behalf.
Gotcha. And being for the students, what would you think that you want to be remembered for?
Just that I was two things. That I was an ear. I listened well. I tried to get an understanding of who you students were, try to figure out, help you find your path. Maybe I saw some things in people that they didn't see in themselves, and I kind of like that. I think my radar is okay, and sometimes I see things in students that it's there. It just hasn't manifested itself, and drawing it out a tiny bit. I love doing that sort of thing. So, I can't emphasize that success thing. I feel more successful now doing what I do than what I did for 30 years in finance.
And feeling more successful now and seeing your impact daily, because you deal with students of all class years, is there any way that you think you can increase your value?
You can always try harder. Anytime anyone comes in for an interview, I do a deep dive on the website. Same thing I recommend for all the students. I can always try to keep working harder, uncovering one thing I didn't think about before, or maybe doing a self-analysis after, I worked with a student, maybe the interview thing didn't work out, or the conversation wasn't as good as I hoped it to be. It's kind of like that statutes in front of the chapel where you have to do a self-examination every day. I do that a lot. And so, my father-in-law used to say perfection comes in the afterlife. I'm not perfect, obviously, and I'm not striving for perfection, but there's always that kind of path that you can always, every single day you can get better, and every single day you can shine a little brighter than you did before.
And as someone that has seen the wealth of Wall Street and the wealth of just having an impact as well, what does affluence mean to you?
I think it's going to sound like a play on words, but enrichment, right? Rather than a wealth of riches financially with money, I think affluence is if you feel enriched, if you're doing something that's enriching for yourself or in someone else, if you're helping somebody. That's affluence for me, right? It's that ability to make someone better, make yourself better. There's no monetary measure for that kind of thing, and it goes back to the sense of purpose and meaning. There's no monetary measure for that. That's affluence. That's wealth. That's being enriching and rich.
Gotcha. And before we get out of here, is there any words of advice that you would like to leave the viewers with?
I would say have conviction in yourself, have conviction in your beliefs. Try not to let people talk you out of something that you know deep in your heart is true. I got talked a little bit out of, when I was at Fordham and a senior, I was thinking about going to philosophy grad school, and I got talked out of that. It's part of the reason I'm doing what I do now, because I want to encourage everyone to really find their path. I think that's, if you get to know who you are, what you could be good at, what you're interested in, own it, believe it, embrace that, and don't let anyone talk you out of it.
And that concludes our interview with Mr. Hottinger. Mr. Hottinger, I appreciate you for your time today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.